Oh. Okay, so I'm just waiting for confirmation, and then I can make a call also, because there is nothing like an ambient background. I will put it just for like this, I don't know, let's say minute or so. I don't know how long it will take for the guy to arrive. So well, obviously I just hope it won't get long. It's on my part. I was supposed to be a little bit earlier, but yep, basically just waiting for the call to transpire, and then can get it started. Okay, I guess I need to also do something like this. Yeah, I will run a leak on my PC instead of my laptop, and in like 160, and disable the chat. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. So that's something that I'm doing in the background. Okay, he said to give him a minute, so it's perfectly reasonable. Then okay. So just waiting for the student to accept, and if you are interested like what we are gonna do, there are some things that he already told me. So the guy is a master tier player, and well, just I guess for the basics, how to get a better win rate, how to consistently win with decks, etc, and some other conclusions. So I guess that's what I will need to address during this. Obviously, if you have any questions in chat, then feel free to send them like now, because later on when like proceed to the call, then I won't be able to answer. Well, I mean, I will be able to answer, but it's just not gonna be the very same. So let me just get the chat going on. Okay, got the Facebook, got the Twitch. So just waiting for a student to arrive, and then we can get it started. As for the basic topics, let's see. I should probably just capture. Yeah, I should probably just go and capture the notepad. Yeah, it's there. Okay, okay, I don't need to make it this big then. Let's see, problems, topics. Yeah, let's name it like this. Because right now, well, there is obviously no idea what's gonna happen. Also, I can make the window a little bit like bigger than that. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I should do it like, okay, like this. This is also gonna work on the long run. So, yep, just waiting for him to arrive. Also, I have now like other insights besides what I had. Okay, let's see, maximizing my chances of winning by reading my opponents better, consistent line of play. Do well with any constructed deck. This might prove to be a little bit what I want to say. This might be a little bit hard to like explain how to do it properly. But yeah, looks like he's ready to. So I will close all the music and then make a call. Hey.
Hey.
So for starters.
Hey, what's up?
Okay. It's fine. I mean, I'm a little bit like I got a cold, so my nose is running like a tap, but so that's why I might sound a little bit strange. But yeah, other than that, everything is fine. And you?
Yeah, fine. Everything's fine here too. You might end up hearing some echoes. I'll try to adjust my audio a bit, but
yeah, there is like no problem with that. So for starters, my English is not perfect, so if there is something that you won't understand or just want me to repeat or explain other words, then just feel free to do so. And just tell me, and I will try my best to do it like in
Oh,
another ways. Also, if you are in the game you are not in the game right now, right?
no, not right now.
Okay.
You want me to start it?
You can open the game, so I can just press the spectate button. Like, even if you are not gonna play at the moment, then we can at least establish the connection within the Steam, so I can see
Okay.
how it's gonna be. Do you have like maybe a list of questions or something like that, or you are just gonna tell me then, like all one by one?
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I forgot the time I spent at work. I forgot to prepare a list of questions, but I pretty much. Let me go over some background. I've been playing Shadowverse for about 6 months now. I'm at Master's rank. I think I consider myself a somewhat experienced player, but sometimes basically, I'm trying to learn to be more consistent with the play styles for all the different decks I'm playing. Essentially, what I want to do, my goal is to have more consistent win rates with any given deck. So I think part of that is I need to improve my mental game um, in terms of yeah. Okay, put that up. Give me a sec.
Yeah, I send the Steam.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there.
Oh yeah, it's
Um,
it's my fault for interrupting, but yeah, just please continue because the background is really helpful and this is what I would ask you anyway about. So
okay.
this is just gonna give
So
my
my
some
biggest
insight.
weakness, I think, is learning to play suboptimally. Like sometimes I mentally lock up or freeze when I don't have the optimal cards on curve, or I don't have what's considered the best possible play in the deck at in my hand at the current time. So I think that's one of the things I need to work on being is trying to work with suboptimal hands, especially against certain boards. And let's see, let me just.
Okay, so my Steam just said that this is not like available right now, so I will just try to send the invite once again. Maybe it will work this time.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, it's loading right now, so I guess it should be fine. Like really soon. Basically, I got the grasp of the issue you have at the moment, and then to proceed, like, what is your like the moment current goal? Do you just want to get Grandmaster consistently, like said me on Discord, or you
Grandmaster.
just plan to go competitive, or any other like goal besides the things that you told me?
Okay, well, I'll list them in order. My primary goal is to hit Grandmaster at this expansion at the very least. My secondary goal is to be able to do this on a consistent basis to hit Grandmaster in future expansions, given regardless of the meta. Essentially, that's my primary goal. My secondary goal is to maximize my win rates. Sorry, with any given deck. I notice players on YouTube, Japanese players like Aporo, they consistently, and I realize it's YouTube recordings, right? They probably cherry pick some of their games, but they consistently played suboptimal decks in formats and consistently managed to pull out victories. Like Aporo, for example, I noticed he plays a Sun Satan deck every Sunday. He calls it Mental Break, right? And he often he often dominates with something that's not even that optimal for unlimited, but it's something like that. That's a secondary goal, is to be able to play any kind of deck like that and maximize my win rate with them
Hmm?
through consistency and the the type of mentality required to play. Yeah, but the type of mentality and optimization needed to pilot these kinds of decks and win. Essentially, that's my secondary goal. So I also like to be a better pilot, so that I might not win every disadvantageous matchup, but I can at least predict my opponent a bit better.
Okay.
So that's secondary too. Like, yeah. That about sums it up. Okay. I want to be able to read my opponents a bit better too. I can see, remain consistent in terms of pattern recognition, knowing okay, this is what turn this is going to come out. What's the opponent's best play here against my board, etc., etc. That kind of thing. Does that make sense to you?
Yep, sure. So yeah, if that's it, then like starting off from the very beginning, from the first goal. So you shouldn't treat, because I assume you didn't get Grandmaster yet, like in the previous expansion, or it's like
no. I only just hit Master Rank back in November, and I didn't really have much time to finish up climbing in December when the meta was completely diverse.
Okay, so with Grandmaster, it's gonna be like this. Like, it sounds kinda counterintuitive, but you shouldn't treat getting Grandmaster like a goal, because it's not like something like you want to get Grandmaster and yeah, it's like a wish, it's gonna happen. No, like the Grandmaster, the rank is gonna be like the reward for your efforts. So you have to make efforts consistently and sacrifice a lot of things, and then like by process you will get there eventually. Like this is the same with the grind. It's not gonna be like you sit down, play some games, and I'm gonna get 1000 points today. No, it's not as easy as that, because
right.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen like by wishing. You will get this 1000 point only if you like play consistently, get a lot of wins, etc., etc. And the same goes with every rank. So right now, the other thing is, how many games are you able to play in a week? Like how much time you spend on Shadowverse?
I work a full-time job, so generally I don't have as much time as I would optimally like to play while balancing my work-life schedule. The best answer I can give you with that is that I tend to play only to complete my dailies, and then on a day off I spend an average maybe 3 or 4 hours playing the game.
Okay, so that's not that much, but it depends. So obviously, we can just make this like simple calculation. It's like you need a lot of time, and the more skilled of a player you are, the less time you need, because you need to play less amount of games, because your win rate will increase if you're a better player. So the better you are, the less time you need. The worse you are, the more time you need. But
right.
Shadowverse is really grindy game. So another question: do you have any like background in other card games or any competitive games?
Certainly. I spent a lot of time playing Yu-Gi-Oh up until 2007, early last year of 2017. I ended up switching to Shadowverse when Link Summoning came. Mostly just did a lot of testing and did a lot of theory crafting the past couple of years before I stopped playing and switched to Shadowverse. But I read up on many of the metagame trends that took place in the past 5 years. I built decks online, I tested them, I read articles to get a better understanding of why this was powerful then, and so on and so forth. Most of it was purely academic, though.
Okay, fine. So it will be just easier to make some comparisons. For me, now that I know that. So the thing is, with the card games like Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, like all of them, I have one thing that is like kinda similar, which is not the thing in this online games. So Hearthstone, Shadowverse, Elder Scrolls Legends, all of them are based on ladder. at least when it comes to ranks, and on grind. So, for example, in Yu-Gi-Oh, when you go to a tournament, you probably spend one day, and if you are a really good player, you're just gonna win your games, win the tournament, and that's it. While in Shadowverse, you can be the best player in the world, and you still have to put a lot of time. Like, let's say Grandmaster, it's 10,000 points. So, assuming you would win 100% of your games, it still makes it 100 games, because you're gonna get 100 points per game, and it's the 100 games. That's a lot of time.
Right.
So, Shadowverse and Hearthstone, like, these are the games where you just need to sacrifice your time, and this is just not it. Like, being good is not enough. So the other thing comes with collection, but I assume you have some decks, like the one that can perform, because you are at master right now. So decks that can take you to master.
I have.
Huh. There you go.
Yes, I do. I have pretty much every. I have the vials and the access to get any card I need to build any deck I want, basically, as required.
Okay, awesome. So that's at least one issue you don't have, because some people don't have collection, but almost all the decks that can take you to masters can also take you to grandmasters. So the collection is a problem. So you can also spread getting there into topics. So for example, you need time, you need skill, you need collection. So in your case, you get collection, and it's also a chance that you got a skill, but maybe you don't have enough time. But right now, it's obviously hard to assume, and this is not the answer that is gonna satisfy you. So obviously, playing more is gonna help, but if you play better, then you don't need to play like much more. So that's the thing. So the other thing about decks, do you build your own decks, or you just copy decks from the internet?
I net deck mostly. I don't build my own decks. Actually, I've sort of forgotten how to. I've sort of forgotten how to be a good deck builder over time. Even in a game like this with a significantly smaller card pool, I've sort of just forgotten how the fundamentals of good, structurally sound deck building. That's
Okay.
That's it.
So that's good, because, well, this is like a trap. I would say a lot of players who are new to the games, like the online ones, are falling off. They're starting up the new game and they're like, oh, I will build my own deck, have some fun, but that's not it. Like, if they are new to the game, then obviously it's not easy, like it's not in their hands to build the decks. So this is like another thing that that is positive about you at the moment. So you know that just copying the decks from the internet, like the decks that are working for a lot of persons, are probably just gonna work for you like the same, because the deck is there. So I assume you have
generally.
proper builds.
I do notice some patterns, like some JCG decks they build with tech choices in mind. So I kind of understand. I have a basic understanding of the mindset of why they've made some of those card choices that look bizarre to the average viewer, but I understand the difference between your a standard constructed build and one with a couple of one-off cards for specific to put in the deck to specifically deal with certain matchups that are more common for that player than they would be for me.
Okay, and which decks were you playing right now? Or are you playing right now in Masters? So at the moment.
Okay, right now I'm playing mid-range Shadow, Ramp Dragon, and Burn Dirt. I haven't had time to properly test many of the decks that I've built this month. Again, time issue mostly. I'd like to give myself time to test builds that I make, both in ranked and unranked matches, before I give myself the time to climb. Obviously, I should have been more efficient. I feel like I should have been more efficient about that. But generally speaking, I climb with whatever is considered top tier, and I like to be methodical and test my builds before attempting the climb. But I'm pretty much playing everything that's currently viable in the meta. Shadow, Dragon, mid-range sword, anything that that can be considered remotely playable, and in this current month anyway.
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, playing all of them, all of the decks, is not gonna help you. Like, okay, that's fine. That's a nice thing, like that you can build all of them. But you should settle up on one deck, maybe two, like two at max, and just spam them. Like, if you know the deck is good, and, well, maybe you notice the deck is good, or someone is claiming that the deck is good, for example, tournament results or ladder results. Like at the moment we have Dragon, Haven, Shadow is a little bit decreasing over the tournaments. Also Forest, but from the decks that are easy and consistent to grind. Because the other thing about the decks is if you want to gain rank, you need a deck that is good to grind. And things that make a deck like a good grinding material is the deck can have a lot of high roll potential. So, for example, Rune, Shadow, and Dragon have a lot of high roll potential, and they are fast. They are fast and efficient because you can end the game really soon. For example, with Dragon, if you just ramp, play something big, your opponent might just concede all of that. With a Shadow, if you lead with a 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, like whatever, later on, just drop Ecter on 7, the game is also over. Same goes for Rune. You can easily win some games just by playing Earth Circle, Earth Sigil, and Magic Illusionist. So some games are win like from the turn 2. So this is also the other thing. So this is a higher potential, and because they are fast, the faster the deck is, the more games you will play per hour, per session, like per the period of time. So obviously more games gives you higher potential when it comes to green, so also more points. So even though, for example, Haven and Forest, these are really good decks right now. So Aegis Haven and Forest with Elephant. These decks that can't punish your opponent. You can't punish them for their early game because you just can't play creatures early on or make some unfair moves. And they win really late. So Aegis Haven wins when they just play Aegis, usually, and then lock the opponent. Or Forest wins with Elephant. So they win really late into the game, and they need to gather their combo pieces. They are not consistent in what the decks want to do. So, for example, Shadow is consistent in just swarming the board, making some trades, but more than that, you just swarm the board and have some creatures that can remove other creatures. So Necro Assassin, Larching Corpse, these are just removing her obstacles. Same goes for Dragon. Dragon just want to drop some units, burn units of your opponent, and then play big creatures. Like, this is consistent plan. And same goes for Rune. Rune also wants to play some creatures and then deal damage, face. While Haven have a lot of cards that are situational, that are answers to other creatures. So Priest of the Cudgel, Ancient Lion Spirit, Stormhaven also have some cards that are situational. Same goes for Forest. Crystallia Lily is a card that...
Yeah.
So I hope you get it, like what I mean by that. So then comes the factor of do you like the deck or not. So if you dislike a deck really hard, then at least in this meta you have some other options. So to choose like the other one. So the first advice would be to just choose one, maximum 2 decks and just play them over and over. Because there is a lot of things that you can learn just by playing a deck, and every time...
Okay, so don't try to focus on every deck then.
Yep.
Because as I mentioned, I forgot to mention, I don't have a main. I don't particularly main a craft. I play all of them. I try to play all of them. I'm going to have the cards to make everything, so I just play everything whenever I can.
Okay, but yeah, as far as it goes, like, you should just focus on 1 or 2 decks and just play them, because you are gonna learn a lot of plays, a lot of openings, a lot of situations, and if you don't have enough time, so assuming you don't play Shadowverse like every day, like, I don't know, 8 hours per day, that's not happening, because you said you have full-time job. Then the thing is, if you play every deck, you're not gonna learn every matchup. Because the thing is, we have 8 classes right now, and even assuming some classes are more popular than the others, and giving each class, let's say, 2 archetypes, probably we can assign 2 archetypes to every class right now. Then even assuming half of that, so aim times to 16, then it would just give us 8, because assuming half of the classes are playable. it's still a lot of classes. So just to play one game versus every matchup, it would be 8 games. And then with all of the classes, just multiply this by number of classes that you are trying, like by number of decks, and you get an answer. Like, that's a lot of things. While if you play 1 or 2 decks only, then you're gonna memorize, because you are gonna play similar matchups often, and you will see what kind of moves are working versus this class, what kind of moves are not, what openings are good, what are bad, and simply you won't be surprised. So if you play versus an opponent and he plays a card that you are unfamiliar with, but you already got mastery of the deck, then you're likely to make a correct move or answer this threat by a good prediction, or just by knowing the extents of your decks. So even if your opponent is trying to kill you with some tech cards or something that you didn't experience before, if you know your deck and know what you can do. So for example, if I do this and this on turn 3, I can do this, this and this on turn 5, etc. So you will simply know what to do in every situation, and this is gonna help you. So the first thing is just to focus on decks and play a lot with them. So just to attain the mastery. It might be boring, and yeah, it is boring for some people, but the thing is, well, if you attempt to grind and want to win, then yeah, winning is not always like fun and enjoyable. Sometimes it's just boring grind, because that's how it is.
Okay.
It's not
I understand.
Yeah, it's not a fancy
Okay,
tournament.
that makes sense. That makes sense to me. Yeah, sometimes, you know, I wouldn't say I am skilled. Maybe I don't think, maybe. Maybe I'm just being modest, but I wouldn't think I'm skilled. I figure I just put in the time, really. I feel like I haven't been able to put in the time to give the game the care it deserves in order to get what I want out of it, which is to climb to GM. I wouldn't say I'm particularly skilled. I just grind it out. I just play for quantity and gradually understand the game as it goes on, game after match, basically. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good. I just, I do what I can. I try to make reads. I learn proper mull, early game, etc., etc.
Yep, but that's perfectly fine. I mean, you don't need to be good at the game to reach Grandmaster or to just grind a rank. You only need to be good with a tier 1 deck. Like, that's the thing. You don't need to know every deck, every card in the game, because if you know every card in the game, every play, etc., that's the characteristic like for the good deck builder. Because good deck builders, like, they need to know entire metagame, how it's shaping, which cards are the deciding factor, etc. But to grind a rank, you only need to master 1 or 2 decks that are tier 1 and that are good for grinding, and that's it. So that's at least the easy part, like learning the one deck, mastering it, and then just playing enough games. So that would be for the grind factor. But for the other things, so for example, consistency. Said that you want to improve it, and this is like the very same answer. So to improve consistency, there is no other way besides like playing more, because if you don't play more, like don't play enough games, then you are not gonna even notice the difference. Because if you play with a deck enough games, then after like playing over and over versus the same matchups, you will eventually come to realizations that some things are working more efficiently than the others, like some cards or some plays on given turns are better, and this will just help you with consistency, because you will just instinctively know what to do and how to react to plays of your opponent, because a lot of cards, they are different, but they do serve the very same purpose. So, for example, if you play versus Shadow and they play Belanus, they play Lirial, they play Happy Pig, they play whatever on the turn 2, it doesn't matter what card it is. It's simply a 2-drop, so you just remove it if you have a tools, because you know that your opponent doesn't matter about the last part of the card or the Evo part or whatever the card is gonna do. He just wants to attack you early, so you have to defend. So that's the thing about it. As for attitudes and the things that might influence the wins, so there will be times where you just do everything correct and you will draw bad cards and you will lose because, I don't know, you will draw off curve, or you will get cards, I don't know, that are perfect answers but not for the given opponent, or you will get hard matchups, or you will go first and second. So,
Right.
yep. So, obviously, if you are playing other card games, for example, Yu-Gi-Oh!, sometimes you know that this is like the beauty of the card games. There is RNG involved in the process of the draw step, so you have no influence over it. Like, sure, in physical card games, some people, they are cheating and stacking the decks and such, but yeah, the situations are not something that we're gonna discuss. So, yep, in online ones, you have no influence over the cards that you draw. So if there is something that you have no influence over, then there is no reason to like tilt, to get mad for it, because if you just can't do it, can't do anything about it, then just focus on the things that you can. So if you make every optimal move and make every decision correct and you still lose, then it doesn't always mean that you did something bad. Sometimes it's just unwinnable because that's how the game is. For example, I said you are playing for the 6 month. So, like past 3 months before the Chronogenesis, so for example, Aggro Sword or Prime Dragon Keeper, going first versus second had huge influence, and a lot of times you would just lose by going second in aggro matchup, and that's like it.
Right. I remember.
Yeah, so this was really frustrating, and it really is when you just have no control over it. But if you just overcome it and brush it off and just play enough games, then this is not gonna matter on the long run. Because sure, some top decks and luck will matter for, let's say, 1 game. But if you play 100 games, 1000 games, and more, then the more games you play, the less the difference is gonna be, because on the long run, the better player is still gonna win. So in these card games, so in Shadowverse, you can put a pro player and a new player who just learned how to play the game and have no experience, and you give both of them tier 1 decks, and pro player will break, or he will draw like triple Bahamut's when playing Dragon. He's not gonna win.
Right.
That's not gonna happen. It doesn't mean he's worse than the less skilled player, but in a single game, that's a possibility. But as you increase the number of games, then obviously, the more skilled player is gonna win. So once again, it all comes down to amount of games you are able to play, and this is like that's the time. Like that's the first thing, and that's it's not the easiest for some people. So if you have work, it's not like you are gonna leave it. But
yeah, that makes sense. Because sometimes whenever I lose a game, I sometimes ask myself, was it myself, or was it, I'm not gonna blame the opponent first and foremost. I sometimes can't tell. I can't distinguish whether it was my own draws or whether it was my own plays that, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I can't distinguish whether it was RNG's fault or my own fault. Sometimes, whenever I take a loss, especially a tough loss, like in particular to a close game, it's hard to tell sometimes. So I understand what you mean.
Okay. Do you watch your own replays?
Yes, I do. I even record them and analyze them.
Okay.
I check for misplays. I tell myself I want to avoid misplaying, but I think I do it at the same rate as everybody else, because we're human, right? We make mistakes, that kind of thing. So I don't think that's a particular issue, and maybe I'm just being too self-critical.
Well, that depends, but you record replays, like you watch them via Shadowverse client, or you record them with any other program, like while you play?
I record them with another program and just save them privately. Anything that I know, anything a particular note that's going to get overwritten. But in most cases, I either do that or I just use the replay function to check my past 10 games.
Okay, so the thing is, I don't know if you have the option or not, but I assume if you are doing it with other program, then it is possible. So one of the really easy things to do is when you record your games, you can, it sounds silly like talking to yourself, but you can just do a commentary on the turns where you have to choose between something, because there will be turns where you have nothing to choose. So for example, your opponent plays a creature turn 1, you play a dragon, you have a blazing breath in your hand, boom, you kill it. So there is nothing to choose between. But if you have a turn where you have to choose between, like, I do option A, option B, option C, and you consider which is the best, you can do like commentary. So I'm gonna do this option because I think it's gonna be like beneficial, it's gonna do this, do this, do this. You just comment like your thoughts, why you are making this move, why are you choosing this particular move over the other ones, and then when you watch the replay, with like a fresh mind, because you know the result, like the game was lost or the game was a win. So if a game was a win, usually a lot of people does not analyze the game that they won because they assume everything was done correct. But even if the games that were won, there are still some plays that can be improved. So maybe there was a play that was a better one, but in the games that were lost, usually there is a misplay somewhere. Like there is a play that could go differently. Sometimes, it will be all to luck or to the bot draws, but sometimes it will be due to misplay. So in the games where you lost, you can simply, because you know the results, you can simply go over through the comments, and then you have a reminder, like what were you thinking at the moment, while you can analyze, like was the other play better. Like this is simple and. But yeah, this is efficient, because if you do a lot of replays, I don't know how many you do, but there is a chance that you probably won't remember what were you thinking in any given moment in every game you're rewatching. So this is just easier.
I see.
This is simply easier, and that's the point for like self-learning, and well, that's just helpful. So for example, this is the thing a lot of people who just streams do, because while they stream, they just comment, oh, I'm doing this and this play. And this is just a really easy way then to do so. Like they open the stream replay, watch over it, and they know what were they thinking. So this is something.
I see.
You can learn from yourself. So there is no one else required for that. So that's the thing. As for prediction of plays, that is the other thing that you mentioned. That's also an easy thing to address. So the thing is, you don't need to know how to play with every deck in the meta, and it would be bad like to try to learn every deck, but at least you know how the deck lists look like. So just look over the top deck list for like every class and try to memorize them. So for example, if you are following YOTCGs, like this is probably the most popular tournament right now, like the Japanese ones, so I assume you are playing in rotation, right?
Yeah, well, I play in both formats, actually, rotation and unlimited.
Okay, so, but then, obviously, if you want to grind, then focus on one at the time.
Yeah,
like,
one. Right now, I have the most points in rotation, so I'm going to focus on that first.
How many points you have in rotation right now?
About 1,300.
Okay, so it's like still 70 to go. So, with 14 days in a month, yeah, it's totally doable. Like, I don't know, like I said, once again, I don't know how many time you will be able to spend, but it's totally doable after all.
Okay. Yeah.
So even if you go something like, let's say, 500 games per day, 500 points, so yeah, 5 more wins than losses, it will still be, you will still reach 10,000, I believe, by then. So if you look at the smaller numbers, so yeah, spread like this, 5 games more than loss, like 5 wins more than losses, then it's really small. Like that's something that you can probably do every day if you focus enough. It's like, I don't know, 1 hour of playing, 2 hours of playing. This is might be more, might be less. That depends. But if you try to do it consistently, just focus on the small wins, then it's gonna be easy. It's not gonna be like you need to grind 7,000 in one day or 7,000. That's
okay. So don't like set goals and be like, okay, I'm not finished until I get until I accumulate 1,000 points this session. That kind of thing. Just grind it out. Be consistent. Just to,
Yeah, you shouldn't just do like.
Yourself, in other words.
Yeah, you shouldn't push yourself. Like, if the session is going wrong, or you're just feeling that you are, I don't know, getting tilted, even subconsciously, like, for example, you lost a game, another game in a row, then even if you know that you are doing something good, well, people tend to be, play wars, and they feel threatened when they lose a lot of games in a row. And yeah, so it's just healthy to take a little break, maybe try to rethink the entire deck, maybe change one card, do something, because all of the things that you're gonna do in Shadowverse doesn't with the learning doesn't have to be games. Like, you don't need to spam games over and over. You can also read articles, watch other people's play the very same deck that you do. Well, there is not many streamers on Twitch. I mean, there are some, but there is. It's like nothing compared to Japanese like Nico and other streaming websites. But the Twitch is more popular one, so I don't know if you're like following the Twitch streams or whatever, but if you are not, you can probably find people who will play the same deck as you. So you can, if they are skilled or if they are willing to answer, you can just watch their streams and see how they are playing the same deck, what decisions they do differently, and yeah, you can just ask them on chat. They will probably answer to like what to do and why they do the very decision. So if you choose the deck that you're gonna play, then obviously it's just gonna be easier. So this is another small thing that can easily help you with a lot of stuff. And coming back to predictions, so you just need to learn what decks are common, what decks are popular. So when you play on ladder, you're obviously not gonna know the entire deck of your opponent, but if they play the cards that are characteristic for archetype, then at least you need to recognize what kind of deck it is. Like, you need to do it fast, because if you recognize the archetype fast, then you can try to predict what they are gonna do. So, for example, if the dragon plays on the spell, like the new one, I forgot the name, that pulls Meltstone Dragons in their hands, then it's a Prime Dragon Keeper, like 99%, because that's the only deck where they are playing this card at the moment. So then you can prepare accordingly. So do you have a removal for Prime Dragon Keeper? What are you gonna do when it drops out? How to protect your life points, etc. So these are the cards that are simply indicating something. As for the other decks right now, I don't know. We probably don't have too much of a distinction, because Shadow is like mostly mid-range. Neptus is not at all. Ramp Dragon versus Storm Dragon, like the Queen combo, you won't learn it until it hits you, because they're playing the very same cards most of the time. In the early and mid game. For Haven also, most of the Havens are Aegis, but if they are Storm, you will know it by the early amulets. So it will come just to learning the common deck lists and try to prepare accordingly. Also, once again, this comes in a circle, so more games you play, the more deck lists you will just memorize by playing, and the more common plays you will recognize. So, that would be for the beginning. Let's see, the other things. Like you said, that there are some guys who can play, who have the ability to pilot any deck. And that's true, because some people are naturally talented or have a skill in their field, and they can just do it. Not everyone is gonna be like them. Nothing is preventing you to be like him. Nothing is preventing people to like do anything. Obviously, there are limits. Like, there are limits to what you can do, and in this case, the limits in card games and Shadowverse is not like your esport, like League of Legends on Counter-Strike. You don't need reflexes. You don't need to predict your opponent, like their movement on the map. You don't need precision with your mouse.
It's not like fighting games where you need execution.
Exactly. So in card games, you only need to just use your brain, think logically, and get some luck with the draws, because we are sacrificing this aspect of movement of your mouse on the reflexes, and we get the RNG as a compensation. Yep. So that's how it works. So because there is no reflexes and other things that some people are naturally better needed, then it's all up to the time. If the people are naturally skilled in card games, then it's good for them. If they are not, they can still spend a lot of time, but they will eventually learn. Like, there is nothing stopping someone, but sometimes the time the requirement of the time is too much. So a lot of people just stops at the like casual level, or they are enjoying the game and that's it. And yeah, like for Hearthstone, Hearthstone base, Shadowverse base, even though we have so many like millions and millions of players, most of the player base is still casual. Like they are just playing while they're riding a bus or riding a train, or I don't know, at school, or maybe they are playing because they are enjoying the game, and they are just not learning the game. They are not trying to learn the game, they are not trying to improve at the game, they are simply playing. So if you just take steps to improve, you're already better than them, and you will eventually just get and take the same road. Other thing is tournaments. Did you play in any tournaments, or do you plan to play in tournaments?
I haven't played any tournaments. I thought about it, and I was kind of curious about doing so. But I haven't played in any tournaments yet.
Okay.
I'm kind of interested, but I don't feel particularly committed to doing so at this time.
Okay, so
But I have thought.
so the thing is, well, there is not a lot of tournaments, but some of them are going on weekly at different times. So if there is a tournament and you have a time to play in it, you have a time to participate, then by all means you should do so. Because the tournament environment is a little bit different than ladder, but it's like a competitive experience. Because if you want to get to Grandmaster now, then maybe later you will want to play in tournaments. Maybe there will be like tasty qualifiers for something, or a new Grand Prix where they just said there will be like $1 million prize for someone, and maybe you will feel like, okay, I want to qualify into this. So if you get the tournament experience, this is obviously gonna help you, because you will be familiar with how the format works, how the ban works, how the site works, etc. And also the players that they were gonna meet in tournaments are probably competitive players too. So this is also a good experience. So even if you lose versus someone who is like recognized a pro or whatever, then you will have a chance to just face versus someone who is objectively better, and maybe learn something from the loss, or just win and take the win and learn something from the win. But participating in tournaments is just a great opportunity to improve, because this is just different than ladder. Because on ladder, players are sometimes, okay, I will play a game, they don't care, they don't focus, they just play cards and whatever. While in tournaments, people enter into tournaments with like this feeling, they want to win. So most of them will be trying their best and competitive, and like I said, this is just gonna be a good experience. So if you have time and the tournament is fine for your time zone or your hours, then just join it and try it out.
Okay.
Like, that's not gonna hurt you at all, and yeah, that's just good. So this is another thing that you can simply do.
Okay, that's a good idea. That actually helps.
And coming back like to the beginning, because I started with players who can pilot anything. So, yep, there is nothing stopping you from learning everything, but you can't learn every deck at the same time. You have to do it one by one, like mastery of the classes. Like first you have to master one, like bring the class to this, like, I don't know, 90% or something. Because getting class to 90%, let's just say it like a number. So 90% for a class, it's probably gonna be enough. So it's better to have like two classes into 90% mastery than all of the classes, for example, on 40. Because in tournaments on our ladder, you can't play every deck at the same time. You are not playing 8 games per time, you're playing one. So it's better to have one deck that you will master, and once again, it's coming back in circles. So when you master one, or you feel confident with one deck, then feel free to swap to the other, and just repeat for all of the classes until you get the grasp out how to play them.
Okay.
And this will obviously help with win rate and with the grind and with every like other aspect. So just getting better with one deck can give you a lot of profits. So this is simply like a guideline of what I think you should do, and it probably outlines most of the things. So if you have any other questions, like for now, that you want me to expand, then feel free to do so. Or if you want to expand on any other topic. Because basically, right now, I didn't spectate the games, but right now, I don't think there is a need for me to spectate games and guide you through them, because there are certain steps that you have to follow first. Like, play enough games for any given deck, for example.
Okay, okay. So I just need to just play more games in that regard to.
Yeah, I mean, I know that feels like Valk, that I'm simply saying like play more games, but that's how it is. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it
Okay,
is. I'll try
okay,
my
no
best like
problem.
explain how we're
Okay,
gonna proceed.
that helps quite a bit. I think that was one of the biggest hurdles I've had playing this game is just my mindset, and yeah, the advice I've been given here has been a significant help. So I'm glad. Yeah,
Hmm? Okay.
it's been very insightful. It's very insightful. Yeah.
Okay. There is also other thing like this is the thing that I'm recommending to simply everyone. But since you played Yu-Gi-Oh, maybe you heard of it. Did you heard or maybe read the book Playing to Win? Like really old one.
By David Serlin, you mean that book?
By David Sirlin exactly.
Oh yeah, I've never read it. Oh, I've
Oh, you didn't. But did you heard
oh
about
I've
it?
never lost my mind to look at it.
Okay, so if you, I mean, I'll send you a link. Like, yeah. So the thing about this book is, even if you like didn't read it in the past, it's still a good thing to like reread it with Shadowverse like in mind, because
Hmm.
this game, sure, it's from like I don't know, 18 years old, something like that. It's super old, and all of the
Yeah.
references are usually to the games that were played back then, so to the fighting card games. But there are also references to the Art of War and other things, and this is simply
Okay.
a book that you can make analogies and translate the things that are said there to almost
Hmm.
any esport genres and a lot of aspects of the life. Uh, if you just I don't know translate them properly. So this is giving a lot of insight with a competitive aspect and can help you like turn your mind to just winning. So sometimes there are like things that for example, in fighting games, like blocking and just throwing around is boring. But if you can win the game just by doing the very same move all the time because your opponent have no way of counterplay, then why not do so? Sure, it will be boring,
Right.
but you are gonna win. So this is simply gonna emphasize on a lot of aspects some mental blocks that players have that simply prevents them from winning the games because they are just doing it for fun. While winning not always means fun, and this book perfectly explains why it does like that. So if you
Oh, I
find
see.
some time, then you can just read it. Obviously, you don't need to read it all at once, but if you like read some like first pages and will be interested in it, then yep, it's if that's something that every player who have like troubles with grind or with mindset should read because there is so many things to be learned from that.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna do that then. Sure. Um, 'Cause I definitely felt like I wanted to do more than just play Shadow. I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to win more consistently. So, ha- yeah, for me,
Hmm?
I needed a new foundation, a new direction to go with. Not just this game, but in general with all the other games I played, everything else I'm doing. So, something like that would prove to be very useful for me.
And also, as for Shadowverse, it's like this all tempo-based card games. So even if you don't know a lot about Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone, I don't know if you know or not, but you played Yu-Gi-Oh, so you at least got the knowledge of this game.
Hmm.
Articles for these games that include some of the mentality aspects or tempo plays or how to act as attacker, defender, and all of these like different positions, then they are just gonna translate to Shadowverse because the game are similar in that matter. Like the only difference between Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone Shadowverse is the thing that in Magic you can respond during your opponent turn, in Hearthstone Shadowverse you can't, and obviously all of the different keywords that are named differently but do perfectly the same. So for example, we have haste, charge, rush, storm. Like all of this simply means playing a creature it can attack immediately. So a lot of
Right.
games
Yeah.
just have this. So it's just gonna translate it into it. So if article is like good and insightful about one of these games, then you can also read it and you will also learn something from it. So it is interchangeable in the end.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
So, like I said, I don't know if if this was like playing more games. Yeah, if this was the answer you were looking for, but I tried to explain it in the best way I could, and I believe this is just gonna solve your problems. And if you just play more, focus on one deck, get yourself some nice mentality backup, and get this winning attitude, then you can easily reach it in this month. And if not, you can start at the beginning of the next month. Just split your playtime between like each and every day, do a small session or every 2 days or whatever, and you probably can definitely reach it. Like anyone can get Grandmaster, and it's all up to the like playing the deck properly, effort and time. There's nothing stopping you. So if there is any other like question or topic you want me to expand, then feel free to do so. And if not,
Okay,
then,
let me
yeah.
think. All right, let me think of a couple questions because.
Yep, go ahead.
All right, just give me a moment. Think here. There's nothing that really sticks out at the moment, but I do notice that I have the most trouble playing tempo decks, like in general, and I think that obviously I need to give it a little more practice, but I think I have the most trouble playing tempo builds, trying to be efficient in that playstyle. I'm more accustomed to standard aggro, mid range, and control, where mid range is just a fulcrum between the two. But I have the most trouble. Sorry, playing tempo decks. I was wondering if you could give me a brief explanation on how it kind of a breakdown on how to play tempo efficiently in Shadowverse. I try to play it. I try to play for card advantage. In Yu-Gi-Oh terms, I just try to make 1-for-1 trades, either by monster or card. I tend to play the value game when I'm playing tempo instead of what you're kind of meant to do, playing tempo. I try not to -1 myself. I try to +1s whenever I can, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you could just go over it with me briefly.
Okay.
Occasionally, I might need reviews on some stuff, but other than that, this one's been a bit of a sticking point. So I was wondering if you could just go over tempo with me briefly.
Okay, so the thing is, what decks do you consider like personally tempo in Shadowverse?
Forest and Daria builds.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes Haven, like depending on.
Okay, so it comes down to consistency of a deck. So, for example, yeah, Daria can be called tempo. And this is the deck where you're just gonna maximize on a brief momentum, like to take advantage, since like the given name tempo. The thing about Daria is you need some sort of like kind of lucky RNG, because if you don't draw your spell boost cards, your cards simply do nothing. Like, yeah, you play something, you lower the cost, but if you don't have the cards that can be lowered, well, so if you don't have Daria in your hand, if you don't have Ogler, Blade Mage, and all other sorts, then your cards, then if you don't have like function cards, your cards are quite bad. So the other thing that's different in tempo decks in Shadowverse and in game like Yu-Gi-Oh! I didn't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Too much, but if I recall correctly, unless they change the rules, you can still do stuff during your opponent's turn. Like, you can answer something, right?
Yep. Generally, you can react on your opponent's turn in most cases, either with what you have on your board, or in some cases, even cards in your hand or in your graveyard, depending on what the effect says. You can essentially react. There are many different options to react to your opponent's plays on their turn.
Sure. So The thing is, obviously, in Shadowverse, we can't do that. That's the very same in Hearthstone, because the tempo in Shadowverse is the very same in Hearthstone. You can't do that. You can't redirect during your opponent turns. And that means, in both of these games, the player who have creatures on the board on his turn and is gonna attack have the advantage. Because you can choose how the combat is gonna go. Like, you can choose, do you want to trade, do you want to do face, what are you gonna do about creatures of your opponent? Like, have no incentive, he can't answer, he can't protect his creatures. There is nothing. I mean, the thing that is closest to it would be the last words. So sometimes, yeah, when the creature dies, then something happens. But usually, unless it's on a creature with ward or with like some sort of effect, you can choose whether you want to trigger the last words or not. So you still have this initiative where you can choose between one move or another. And as for the tempo. You shouldn't prioritize trading so much with the creatures of your opponent if you have the initiative. So if you have a strong opener, so creature into creature into creature, for example, like this is a strong opener for a lot of decks, or creature into removal, into something. Like if you are going first, then going first helps a lot with being on the tempo side, because you are the one who plays the creatures first, and you are the one who can go into combat first, etc. So you can prioritize going face instead of trades, because trading one for one not always mean you will have the advantage, and sometimes it will put you like in the back, because there are cases if you go into face of your opponent and he still needs to trade your creature. Like, so if you trade his creature instead of going face, that means you lost the damage, because he had a means of trading, like had to trade it anyway, because his life total was threatened, for example. So yeah. Going face is something that's really useful, but the situations where you want to go face or where you don't depends on the kind of deck you are facing. So it comes down to knowing your own deck, so how much damage can you perform or any given turn with the cards that you have in your deck. So for example, with Daria, it's hard to predict, because with Daria you don't have much direct damage, but as far as tempo goes, we can consider that Burn Ren. It's also sort of tempo deck, because it plays small efficient creatures, it plays spells that deals damage, and also have some nice tempo swings with cards like Levi, with cards like Mutagenic Bolts, and some direct damage with a Chain Lightning. Yes. So with Burn Rune, you will know exactly how many damage you can do in every turn, and sometimes there are choices that are really easy to recognize what to do. So for example, Halo Golem. You can go Halo Golem face, you can go Halo Golem trade. And in some situations you want to go Halo Golem face, because you know that the next turn you are gonna do like exactly the same, then the turn 6 you are gonna do Levi, then later on you are gonna go Chain Lightning. You simply calculate the damage. So you should trade depending on your position of the board. So with a tempo, you try to kill your opponent as fast as possible, because your deck is not control, your deck is not mid-range, you don't have super expensive creatures, you don't have mid-game, and how the burn played is right now is probably one of the best examples of how tempo should be played. So you want to close the games as fast as possible. So in order to do so, you try to burn your enemy, like to swing as much damage as possible. And the new builds of runes, so with the Mage of Nightfall, for example, emphasize a lot on this, because they just play Mage of Nightfall. It got ambushed, so it hardly can be removed by most of the classes. Then they just evolve the Mage of Nightfall and go face. They don't care about trading, they don't care about your board. They care about your board when it's the turn of Levi, but they can simply ignore it. If they know, for example, they will go Mutagenic Bolt, or that their life is not threatened, or that the opponent have to trade with them. They will sometimes just go face, 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 and you can stop them. Sometimes you won't stop them. Sometimes they are not free to go face, face, and face, but it comes down to the removal in hand. So when you know what cards you have in hand, then you can decide, can I go face here, or can't I? So this was also this like super old article about the beatdown, I guess. I will find it, of Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
Okay, give me a second. So it's really short, and obviously it's with a different game, but it's just explaining the very same thing. Because sometimes with aggro deck you will have to go on a control role, or with control deck you will go to aggro role, and same goes for tempo. Tempo is flexible. So with this kind of deck, you can take aggressive approach, you can get defensive approach, but you have to finish games fast. Like, this is something. You can't go into the late game because you don't have value cards. For example, Dragon is perfectly fine with going into the late game, but Aggro Forest, not quite. Like, Aggro Forest late game, they are gonna top the quad, Elf Song, they are gonna top deck Fairy Whisperer and play some fairies. While Dragon can just top deck Israfil, Bahamut, whatever. So, yep, going into late game is not the same for the different decks. And tempo decks simply have to outvalue opponents early game, make plays that are gonna benefit them the most, then finish the game before your opponent can answer it. Also, let me check if I got something like specifically on tempo, because I probably got something.
Okay.
Because the thing is, in Shadowverse, Shadowverse does not have a lot of articles. Like, even if there are some, most of them are, like, they are kinda in Japanese. So, yeah, unless you know Japanese, then I don't know if you know or not, then there is trouble reading them. And the ones that are in English, there is only, like, a few. So...
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I got some also short example from Hearthstone, but this is also something that's good on tempo, and that's also like emphasizing of the tempo is what you need to do early game instead of what you need to do with your cards, because like at the very beginning they are touching it that tempo not always means card advantage, and you can simply throw away card advantage for the board advantage. The other thing, like in Shadowverse, is why the Vengeance is so good. Why in Unlimited, obviously.
Yeah.
So you have obviously like these three common advantages. You got life advantage, board advantage, and hand advantage. So this goes for the advantage in the game. So if you have board advantage, you are more likely than not in a position where you will be able to go with a health advantage, because you will attack your opponent and then he will lose life, so you will get more life. But, for example, if your opponent got bored and you got HP, you are not in a good position. If your opponent got bored, you got some cards, but these cards are not answers, you are still not in a good position. But with Vengeance, they don't care. As long as they are on more than 1 point of HP, they are fine. So, sure, Belphegor, at the beginning, like when the card was released, people were shrugging it off like, oh yeah, I will deal 10 damage to myself, it's bad. But they can be on 10, they can be on 9, 8, 7, 1. Well, 1 is bad, and obviously 2 is also bad because you can't play Razor Claw and Bloodwolf. But as long as you are alive, you can use life as a resource here, and using life as a resource for all of these cards, so Razor Claw, Bloodwolf, etc., proves to be efficient strategy, because you have cards like Emeralda and Diabolic Drain that are making use of this life loss. So this deck is perfectly synergetic, and the other classes does not make use of the health. All of the other classes like Dragon, Forest, Haven, they just want to have 20 HP. They have nothing that can interact with HP, so Blood is like the only one that takes advantage of losing life and using life as a resource.
Right.
So, yeah, it's good in that aspect. I assume in Yu-Gi-Oh! There were also cards that had to do something with your life total.
Yep, lots of cards require you to pay life. Yeah, you use your own life as a resource. But yeah, that's a good example.
Yep, so this is how you just transfer your life as a resource instead of playing mana or drawing cards or doing any other thing. So, yep, that would be the on tempo. Obviously, there are probably many more articles on like tempo and explanation, but yeah, these are all like the basics. So this is probably gonna help a little bit.
Okay, that makes sense. I noticed that with Vengeance Blood, I find that I feel like I have a more stable late game than I did playing Aggro Blood. Even with decks like Stormhaven, I feel like I have the adaptability to play defensively compared to a regular aggro deck. Like if my opponent slows plays cards that slow down my game plan. I didn't feel like I was completely out of the game. That's one thing I noticed. I felt like I had a more stable late game playing decks like Vengeance Blood or Stormhaven than I did playing a regular aggro build.
Yep, and that makes sense because the different tempo decks, different classes, will have like their different point of game where they are taking off. So, for example, with Forest, with Rune, you want to go off like from turn 1, turn 2, you won't play your creatures, then follow up with other creatures or spells or removals. So sometimes Halo Golem as a removal of opponent's creature, for example, mirror matchup. You play Magic Illusionist, you play Carl, your opponent plays Carl, you play Halo Golem, remove their Carl, and now you have 3 creatures versus like 2, for example, or something else. So using it as a tempo swing is fine. While as for Haven, Stormhaven can be considered tempo, but they go off like by the turn 4, 5. Because on the 5 they can play March Hearty Time, and if they follow up with Garuda, then that's a lot of games that can be win just like that, because you are getting so much value with the Evolve on one Tin Soldier, then Garuda and Evolve on the other. This is simply hard to beat by a lot of decks.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that would be like the basics of the tempo. But yeah, all in all, just try to emphasize on the face more. Tempo does not need a card advantage. Tempo just need to deal damage. Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so I don't know. There's anything else that I can help you with? At least
Sure.
for now.
Let me think some more.
Okay.
You talked about board initiative earlier. I feel like I have trouble playing defensively, like in terms of playing on the back foot. So I was wondering what's the best way to play it when you don't have initiative? How do you take back initiative? Obviously, you know, we have cards that give you board swings and allow you to sort of take back the board, but I just sometimes have difficulty playing at a disadvantage, and I was wondering what kind of insight you could give me on that.
Sure. So, yeah, like I said, sometimes there are board kills, so yeah, let's assume you're behind on board and drop Bahamut. Yeah, that's a win-win situation, but we are not talking about that. So, if you are in trouble, that depends what like time of the match is. Is it early game, mid game, late game? Because if you are falling behind in early game, so pre-Evo state, then it's fine. Sometimes a lot of decks, a lot of decks, and I would assume most of them, have evolutions that have some sort of like additional effects. So Dragon, got Ramp, Lurial is also one of the common ones that shoots one. Halo Golem doesn't need to be evolved, but if you drop Halo Golem and evolve it, it also can deal with the creatures. So simply, cards that can do 2 for 1 on the Evo turns and do the swings are the good things to go back from the loss of the early game. But if you are losing like past the mid game or at the phase where both of the players have no evolutions left, then it is a problem. And the problem can be fixed only by ability of your deck to remove something, like to deal with it. So, if for example Dragon, if you have Breath of the Salamander, Bahamut, Sarakel, Israfils, you can deal with the board without evos. But let's assume your deck does not have evos and doesn't have these cards and you are playing other class. If you don't have cards that can bring you back from a pinch, that means that either it's past the clock of your deck, because it's usually a problem of aggro and tempo decks, like sometimes mid-range, but most of the time mid-range and control-ish ones will have a really good late game, so they don't have this problem, while the aggro decks aggro decks are playing against the clock in this game. So obviously you want to finish your opponent before they are able to heal themselves or to ward themselves or to just finish you off with a combo. So aggro is playing against the clock. You have certain number of turns that you have to kill your opponent within, and if you don't, you simply lost. Like, that's how it is. Because your cards have no value in the mid or late game phase, because if you are top decking early game creatures, because you are playing aggro, so you include a lot of 2-drops, include some 1-drops, include some removal spells. Aggro Blood, for example, will be like the perfect one here. So, assuming Aggro Blood versus Vengeance Blood in the late game. Vengeance can top deck Emeralda, which can destroy anything. Vengeance can top deck Airjammer and just get a double ward if they are lucky. Sure, they can also top deck some early game creatures, but there is a reason why they're running Airjammers. So they won't top deck bad creatures later on, because they will take them out of the deck. Also, they get Belphegors, so they get a lot of draws. They get cards that heal them, so Diabolic Drain is healing them, Scarlet Saberur is also healing them. But Vengeance is like more of a mid-range. So let's go to the control ones. Let's go to the Dragon, for example. Dragon, in the late game, there is a lot of cards that can simply save you, because you get Draconic Fervor, heals and draw, Sibyl, heal, that needs to be removed in one turn. While Aggro Blood will just top deck a Vampire, like 1 and 2, Ambling Crave. Or best case scenario, they will go Karabos. But without an Evo, that's still not gonna help you. Like, that's not the card that can deal with the board. So if you are playing from behind, it's up to your deck. So if your deck is constructed in a way that can't take advantage of, can't deal with being behind, that means you have to play the deck more aggressively. So prioritize going face and swinging this damage. And it also comes down to what your deck is capable of. So if your deck got some face damage, for example, Rune got Chain Lightning, Blood got Razor Claw, like this sort of things, then if you go face early on, like if you recognize that the late game you are not gonna win, then you can just sacrifice trading, go all in face, and then just hope for a top decks, like for a damage that will be able to finish your opponent, because they won't always find heal in time, and if they do find it, then even if you did trade early on, that means they would have even more health. So it's like a lost-lost situation. So this is like this trap for Hearthstone Shadowverse. All of these cards where you can't interact with your opponent cards in his turn. So yeah, this is simply a clock, and you have to finish. Like, you have a certain number of turns where you have to finish off your opponent, because your card have no value. There is no like magic trick to going back when you are losing, because your cards are not able to give you this possibility. Like, your cards can do it, so you can only do as much as your cards, and if you don't draw them, then it is obviously bad. So sometimes, if you're, for example, playing mirror matchup and you are going down in a mirror matchup, like your opponent have the advantage, then you have to find the best play that can give you 2 for 1. So you can get cards with 1 card, or you can remove something, or you can, for example, Master Mage Levi. This is the card that in mirror matchups can take on like more cards than 1, can kill more than 1, and also can deal some face damage. Face damage is probably irrelevant if you are counting on it, but ability to kill more creatures at once is good. What other?
Okay.
We have Mutagenic Bolt. This is also the other card that can take on many of them. And this is it. As for Forest, for example, got Cassiopeia. So if you are behind, but all of a sudden you play Cassiopeia and clear the entire board, your opponent needs time to rebuild the board if they are playing like a normal deck, and then you are buying yourself more time with that. But there is hardly anything that you can do if your cards does not allow you to. So, for example, if you have only like small creatures and some burn removals, and your opponent is playing a big creature just to follow up to his awesome mid game and early game, yeah, that's it. Like, that's how it is, and there is nothing that you can do. Like, not gonna lie, this is frustrating sometimes, but yeah, it's all how your deck is built. So if your deck have no late game options, then you just can't hope that you will magically overturn the board and win somehow, unless your opponent makes a crucial mistakes or whatever.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, cool.
Well, for now, I think that just about covers everything.
Okay. So yeah. If it's then I don't know. If you go on to like more questions or something, then feel free to message me on Discord. Like, yeah, I will answer. Maybe not immediately, but yeah, I will do.
Okay,
Well,
no problem.
yeah, but
Thanks so
now,
much for taking the time to help me out. Yeah, I just need some pointers and some advice because yeah, that I'm gonna start. I'm gonna take steps to start playing more games and just focusing on one or two decks, like you said. So I get a better understanding of the game overall. I'm gonna read through Serlin's articles so I can develop that mindset. And hopefully, it'll make the game more fun for me that way.
yeah, because like I said, there is a chance that you don't need any improvement because maybe you are skilled enough already, maybe you have enough time already, but you just needed some, I don't know, guideline, like what to do in like what order and what to focus on. And
Yeah. Just some guidance and maybe a bit of mental reframing. That helped me. That should help me.
I hope so.
All right. Thanks so much, man. Thanks for taking the time out to talk to me here. Yeah, if I have any more questions, I probably will. Probably set up another session sometime later.
Okay, sure. So yeah, see ya and yep, have a good night and good luck in your games.
Thank you so much. You as well. Take care.
Yeah, thanks. Bye. Okay, so yep, that would basically be it for now. If you were here like for the beginning, then you probably realized that it was just some sort of like generic guidance on of like what to do and like basic direction, what you need to do in order to grind ranks. And yeah, I hope someone also learned from it. So that's it. So if you want to order your own coaching, you can go on Gamer Sensei page and then order it. If you want some discounts and stuff, and if you want to apply via Holosky community project, then you just need to fill out the forms. So yeah, they were present somewhere. Find them on Reddit. Yeah, find them on Reddit. Fill out the forms, and yep. Also, good luck in Shadowverse and other games that you are playing. So I hope you enjoyed the session a little bit, and also see you other time. So yep, bye.